Dhaka, Bangladesh. Before aka Ullah returned home to New York from his native Bangladesh, and tried to blow himself up with a pipe bomb in a crowded Manhattan subway station, he had one last thing to do: an all-night bus ride by himself to help Rohingya refugees. After visiting relatives here in the capital city, Dhaka, he traveled across the country, slept in a mosque and under a tree, passed out a few $100s of medicine in the crowded refugee camps. When he left, he seemed happy, said his mother-in-law, Mahfuza Akhtar. But when he returned, he was so upset. He said those people were living in hell, each and every minute. That lonely trip across Bangladesh in September remains a mystery. Was Mr. Ullah following Al-Qaeda, who had just urged Muslims to deliver medicine and weapons to the Rohingya, a Muslim ethnic group whose members have been raped, brutalized and massacred in neighboring Myanmar? Or was he following his own heart, reflecting some sort of inner struggle as he headed toward his first known act of violence and self-destruction? A few weeks after his trip, federal investigators said, Mr. Ullah, 27, returned to Brooklyn and began building a bomb out of match heads and a piece of pipe he found at a construction site. He detonated it on a busy Monday morning, December 11, in a Manhattan subway station, wounding himself and a few passers-by but doing far less damage than he could have. He was apprehended on the spot. From a bed in Bellevue Hospital on Manhattan's East Side, he has been cooperating with investigators, saying he was inspired online by the Islamic State to strike against the United States for its policies in the Muslim world. Charged with several terrorism-related offenses, he may never get out of jail. In many ways, his is an open and shut case. But extensive interviews with more than a dozen friends, relatives and acquaintances, in Bangladesh and the United States, still leave a hole as to why Mr. Ullah did this. He comes across as impulsive, angry, riveted to militant social media and outraged by injustices inflicted on Muslims. He was also described by several people who know him well as loving and giving. And he did not seem hopeless, a classic characteristic of people about to take their own lives, nor was he isolated. He was close to his childhood family, his mother and siblings, and he was building a new one. This is a little different, said Muhammad Abdur Rashid, a retired army general who now runs a research institute on conflict in Dhaka, Bangladesh's capital. He had fewer reasons to feel desperate. Bangladeshi police officials have put 15 officers on this case. Mr. Ullah, especially his last actions in the Rohingya camp, represents the union of some of their greatest fears. Both American and Bangladeshi investigators say Mr. Ullah was not a jihadist export from Bangladesh, but was radicalized after he arrived in New York in 2011. Before that, he did not seem interested in militant groups. Bangladeshis are deeply worried about this phenomenon, young members of the diaspora becoming radicalized overseas. Mr.